Okay, a quick overview of the Apple CarPlay and backup camera install on my 2011 Quattroporte. I'll start off in the rear, showing where I mounted my camera. I went in through the license plate light, just wedging the cable in between so I wouldn't have to do any cutting or drilling in the back. I do have a rubber grommet behind this screw just to give me a little more flexibility on how I could bend the bracket to adjust the camera perfectly. On the inside of the trunk, following the instructions, just removing all the different pop points. You can find a pretty easy channel to snake the cable down through until you hit the rubber encasement. This was one of the most difficult portions of the install, getting the RCA jack, which was pretty fat, through that with some fishing rods and hefty lubrication. Underneath the trunk lid, I also removed the attachment points on each side to allow me to drop the covering a couple of inches to put a light in there to help chase the cable from the other side. Inside the rear, I went through the latch cable area. I could take the headrest off and see the light shining through there to push a fishing rod through to attach the cable to. Once the cable was ran, I was able to tuck it nice and neat through the side of the seat trim, down the door trim, all the way to the front driver's area. Within the car itself, you can see where I installed the microphone just on the other side of the steering wheel. I right now have my iPhone cable running in the little cubby where the CG changer is on some older models. I'm not sure if that's where I'm going to keep it in the end, but it works pretty well. As far as the car itself goes, I'm going to switch it back to baseline. If you are in the car and you start reversing, the camera automatically pops up. I've got the trunk lid open, unfortunately, so you're just seeing the back of my garage door. I thought that was pretty slick. In order to get it to switch systems, you just have to press and hold the telephone button. And I was last using CarPlay, so it's automatically popping up into the CarPlay environment. If you click the car, or I change the icon to Maserati, it will switch it over to the base Android system. Again, I can click airplane, switch it back over to the Apple environment, which I'm a fan of. Within here, it's a standard Apple CarPlay setup. You can use Spotify to play any music you want. The audio integration occurs through the auxiliary input, so that is the only thing I did with the glove box in my install, running the auxiliary cable back. In the Quattroporte, there's not room behind the glove box to do the installs itself, so all the boxes are behind the main infotainment system. Much less trim to take apart overall. In this case, there are 2 bolts underneath the cup holder trims. There's 1 bolt behind the ashtray, and if you use a trim removal tool to pop up the gear indicator, you can find the 4th bolt there. Once that is out, you can lift this entire piece up. It is still attached due to the leather surround of the shift knob. I found it handy to block the wheels and have the gear shift all the way back into drive mode, just to give me the most clearance from the infotainment center itself, and to lift the cover off. Once the cover is off, if you look underneath, there's a silver bolt here and on the other side. Up at the top, if you use a trim removal tool, you can take the vent and clock off pretty easily. There's a single cable connector you detached, and then there's 2 silver bolts behind that. Those 4 bolts are the only thing that's holding the entire infotainment and AC system in place. With that off, you can lean it forward while you access all the different cables and connections on the backside to detach. Once it's detached, you can follow the instructions installing the touch film overlay that the instructions were very, very clear on, as well as to make the individual connections on the back. The connections were pretty simple to do. Only 4 wires needed to be spliced off of the main input of the entertainment system's main wiring harness. It took me about, I'd say 8 hours total to do. Again, this is my first on the Maseratis. Although I was fairly competent installing car stereos, I haven't done one in almost a decade. It wasn't too tricky to do. I did it over the course of 3 or 4 days, allowing me to pause and figure out some of the more complex issues, since there weren't instructions on people doing it in this model of car previously. So that is pretty much it. Oh, I guess I could show Siri and the microphone. Hey Siri, where's the closest Maserati dealer?
The closest one I see is Bob McCosh Chevrolet on Torrey Pines Drive. Let me know if you want more information.
I don't think they've got Maseratis at Bob McCosh Chevrolet. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to post. I'll answer as many as I can.